I don't want this channel to be overly reactionary or trendy. I generally like to talk about things after the dust has settled, after a large part of the discussion has already been played out and a consensus has formed for me to respond to. So, as a rule, I try to make my videos more retrospective than prospective. Still, this is no hard rule, and this is my channel, and I can do what I want. And I like to think I have something positive to contribute in this case. I don't like how the Persona 4 remake looks. Graphically, I mean. We have nothing to go off of for how it will play. Let me just say that I am still incredibly excited for this game. Persona 4 Golden is my favorite game of all time, but I can still recognize how helpful a remake could be in polishing up its combat and dungeon design. And I have a lot of faith that the team behind this remake will deliver in those regards. But the part of the remake that more or less the entire trailer centered around still has me slightly worried. I'm really not a fan of this redesigned art style. I'm not sure how controversial of a take this will be, but I think the art direction behind Persona 4's world is near perfect. Inaba remains one of the most memorable places I've ever visited in a video game. Now, for a very understandable reason, P4 doesn't have a reputation for being graphically impressive. That is due to the game's character models. There's no sugarcoating it. They all look like they're made of Play-Doh. They're just not fun to look at, and they often take up way too much of the screen's real estate. But if you can manage the admittedly hard task of looking past the uncanny valley-esque abominations littering Inaba's streets, it will reveal itself as a masterpiece of art direction. Inaba captures the dying countryside atmosphere perfectly, and it does so by looking thoroughly imperfect. Grass is unevenly cut, trash is littered everywhere, the town school is rickety and run down, as are almost all of the game's buildings. The world's skybox, usually something developers can stylize to their heart's content, looks even more muted than most of the town. Even before the fog comes in, gray clouds are almost always covering up any hint of color, only helped by the television poles that are curiously visible in pretty much every district. Considering the technology that this game was originally designed for, it is remarkable how much Inaba's characteristic sense of decay and death come alive. Games from this generation that tried to look realistic have typically aged terribly. It's common wisdom that only stylized-looking games manage to hold up in retrospect. But Persona 4 proves to be the exception, almost the exception, to that rule. And from how I see it, it's Inaba's willingness to look decadent and run down that has made it so endearing for fans. We remember Inaba so fondly because there is something beautiful about the rustic, something illuminating about the muted. We often look back at our childhoods with rose-colored glasses, but if you look back to your favorite childhood place, I doubt you'll remember it looking all shiny and glossy. You'll probably remember it as it was. Rustic, unpolished, something that could be called ugly. There just so happens to be something appealing about quote-unquote ugly places. And this motif is very common throughout P4. Now, I admit, I'm veering into a discussion here that may be too hoity-toity for a video like this. But, as we've established, this is my channel, and I'll do what I want. The reoccurring motif throughout Persona 4's story is in confronting the dark and disturbing aspects about yourself and accepting them. That alone makes for a compelling, if trite, story. But what I think sets Persona 4 apart from other coming-of-age stories is in it acknowledging that confronting one's faults doesn't make them immediately go away. These characters still struggle with their insecurities and darker habits well after they acknowledge that they exist. And the consistent move that the story makes from there is in revealing to the characters that it's not enough to just confront your flaws, you have to dig deeper into them. It's only in understanding them deeper that the characters discover how to channel what used to be a negative or destructive trait into something positive. It's, paradoxically enough, through their ugliness that they become very likable. Now, remember what I said about how Inaba's appeal comes from its ugliness? That all established, you can probably guess what I'm going to say about this rendition of Inaba. It's too shiny, it looks too perfect and too picturesque. And yes, I know we only saw 48 seconds of it, but those 48 seconds were really eager to make it look as beautiful as possible. The developers seem to be basing this off of the art style for Persona 3 Reload. And to be clear, I really like how P3 art looks. That's because its art style fits the ambience of its world. Tatsuma Port Island is supposed to be a larger-than-life, thriving, and futuristic city. It would probably look picturesque and shiny if it existed in real life. The art designers heightening that glossy look is to the game's benefit. But that style doesn't work at all for Inaba. The entire appeal of Inaba is how run down it all looks. And it's more frustrating when we've seen a team from Atlus Games use a more realistic art style just months ago. The soft shading and muted colors of Metaphor Refantosio sell the dark and grimy streets of the Grand Trad or Old Castle Town perfectly. Now, this game is selling a very different atmosphere than P4 tried to sell, but I think you could get much closer to Persona 4's atmosphere with an art style resembling Metaphor than you could with something resembling Reloads. The grimy gray of Inaba wasn't a necessary concession the game made to exist on the hardware that it existed on. The team was more than willing and able to throw colors everywhere inside the TV world. That they didn't splash colors all throughout Inaba was intentional. Let me just close by reiterating that I am still very excited for this game. It's clearly still very early in development, and I know that Inaba could look very differently in the final product. Now, considering modern development times, I don't think that's particularly likely, but it could happen. Even if it doesn't though, I still have a lot of trust that this game will, overall, be excellent, and I cannot wait to play it. But if Revival's Inaba does look as shiny and glossy as this trailer makes it look, then I'll still have a reason to revisit Golden from time to time. And in a sense, I guess that's not a terrible thing.